as well. Or was it somewhere else?
Hello, gentlemen. I think to introduce what are we doing. This is the first of hopefully going to be a monthly sort of video podcast series where we basically just talk about the Drowned Earth, talk about the game, talk about what's happened, talk about what's happening. And I guess this is probably now the time when let's just introduce ourselves. So I'm James. I'm the bloke who made this thing. And I'll say no more. And would you guys like to introduce yourselves and say what your connection is?
Go on, Kieran, you go first.
Sure. Okay, I'm Kieran. I found the game not long ago, actually, when I was hosting an event which I've started up called Gotham to Samaria. Which is a social event for people playing games in a non-tournament setting.
Excellent. Simon, shoot.
Hi, guys. So I got the joy of getting involved with the game during the Kickstarter. Spending a lot of time playtesting with James and the guys, and I kind of look after the Wayfarer program now.
Yeah, and beta testing as well, don't forget. Tom.
So my name's Tom, as James just said. I am actually friends with James before the Drowned Earth came out, but I have been helping him out with...
How's that been working for you?
It's been an on-off relationship, let's be honest. But I've been helping James with beta testing, proofreading, and doing some stuff with him on social media as well.
Ian.
I'm Ian, and I was mugged into this by Kieran.
Yeah, you just to explain to everyone, you're one of the guys that you're a member of Gotham to Samaria as well, I think.
He's co-founder.
Stepped in at the very last minute because we had a late cancellation. Well, not that late actually, but I just didn't manage to organise a replacement. So Ian has very kindly stepped up at the last minute. So good stuff. Now, I guess why don't we? We'll go through just in an informal way. How did you first get involved with the game? Why? What particularly interests you about the game? How's it different to what you're used to? What is there? What are the advantages, disadvantages, etc. Jump in, anyone.
So I mean, I one of the things that got me involved the most, and I liked. So I played quite a bit of Infinity prior to the Drowned Earth. I always liked the fact that you had the ability to always be a part of the game, even when it was the other person's turn. Thing I like a lot about Drowned Earth, apart from the fact I don't have to carry around 5 rule books anymore, is the fact that I'm limited to how many times I can do those reactions. So I've got to work out whether me reacting to what you're doing is worth me not being able to do an action. It adds an extra tactical depth, which I like, rather than I'm just going to stand here and just shoot at you every time you move because I can.
Yeah,
clearly not lucky enough.
Yeah, well, we've always had those days when we're playing someone who just feats turn roll after roll after roll, and I stand there and read out the probability to them, and it's like, yeah, that's 1 in 4,872. Anyway.
Yeah, but you know from other things, James, I have the ability to do the direct opposite and roll statistical anomalies in the wrong one.
Yeah. Yeah, we've all been there. So who wants to go next?
I actually like the dynamic movement system was what interested me initially in the game, but I really love the crit botch system, the feat botch system. It is awesome. It results in so many great and tragic moments within the games I play. Normally great for me, actually. I tend to be quite lucky.
Yeah, I heard Ian mention that just a few moments ago. But yeah, we all like a bit of chaos, and I sort of my personal preference for games is that you're rewarded by planning well and knowing the game and having a good skill level. But having a good skill level and knowing the game and all of those things doesn't mean that you just have a complete cakewalk every time you play somebody new, because we've all, you know, played chess against someone who's way better at chess, and it's just no fun at all. You know, I sort of feel like has anyone played a game called Camel Up?
No.
No, so it's a board game. Simon, you have.
Yeah.
So what? Tell us about Camel Up, just as a sort of completely random and weird example. Do you want me to get you started?
Being put on the spot there.
So Camel Up, I think Camel Up is one of those games where you can, there are different colors of camel, but you are not controlling a camel. You're betting on the outcome of this camel race. And the camels tessellate, they stack on top of each other. And if the camel at the bottom of the stack moves, it carries all the other camels with it. And so mathematically, you've got all this crazy probability going on. And it's really worth your while to analyze it and think about it carefully. And there are loads of interesting decisions to make. You know, the way the game changes and the way you earn victory points, and deciding what camel's going to win this round as opposed to the whole race, and all that kind of stuff. But at the same time, the dice can just laugh in your face, and all of that analysis can get chucked out. But it won't. It's still sensible to play sensibly, and you'll be rewarded for it. You just won't be rewarded for it every time.
Yeah, I think that's similar with what you've done with TDE, is that you can be behind, but you're never out of it. Or it's very unlikely that you're just going to be completely out of it. There's a route back in a lot of the time.
Yeah, exactly. It's definitely not a zero luck, 100% skill kind of game, and that was very much intentional. Ian, any thoughts?
Yeah. I first saw the game on Gorilla Miniatures, Ash Barker.
Oh yeah.
And I saw a gorilla with a minigun. I said, that's cool as shit. I have to get that.
Yeah, it's always the winner. So there's a little bit of popular media influence on that model. Can you guess what my influences might have been? It's sort of a mashup of two different characters, neither of whom are a gorilla.
I don't know. Jesse Ventura looks like a gorilla.
Anyone got any guesses?
Not on the gorilla.
Totally forgotten the character's name, so it doesn't. It's is it Fernandez? No, the Lady Marines.
From Alien.
With red bandana. Aliens rather than Alien.
Aliens, that's it. Yeah.
Vasquez.
Yeah. Vasquez, that's right. Yeah. That, and I think his name is Butch, the dude with the minigun in Predator.
Yes.
Yeah.
So the militia have definitely got a bit of a Predator vibe going on there, I think.
I love how you've done that and not actually talked about the guy who leads them being influenced by anybody in any possible way.
Oh, I don't know who he could possibly look like.
Yeah, there's a lot of influence between Alien and Predator and that faction, isn't there?
Yeah.
Not mentioning the power loader.
Yeah, no comment. No comment.
James, does that move if he gets out?
No. If there's nobody operating it, it does not move. This is a genuine question that I have been asked way too many times. Way too many times. Tom.
So the stuff that I liked about the Drowned Earth, I guess that having been involved a bit before the Kickstarter, like sort of you mentioning sort of bouncing fluff ideas off to me. So I really like the setting, stuff like the Historica, and for anyone all the people who are reading the fluff, like that sort of stuff really appeals. Like the idea that this is a slightly different setting to what you'd expect, like post-apocalyptic Mad Max-esque games. This one's like the complete opposite, but in a way that really appeals. And you know, the idea that they're sort of technology is like creeping back. This isn't just after the event. We're like, you know, talking a long period of time after it. So yeah, I've always like just been very interested in always reading that fluff. But from the game mechanics point of view, I've really liked the command abilities, because I played Infinity with James, and I like Infinity, but the mechanics for the orders didn't really appeal, because all I found everyone did was just take all the orders that you generate from your troops and just dump them into just one heavy guy and just have him rampage across the map. Whereas this feels a bit more like I'm, you know, I have to sort of think tactically about, do I take this, you know, do I use my command to sort of take APs from someone to pass to someone else? And it leads to some really amazing moments, like playing one game against someone who really used command quite well with Nyx, like to be able to navigate, like he just was able to take enough APs and he nailed it. So he got 2 and then was able to just use it to sort of actually get to an overwatch over the objective, and it had to change all my plans. And I was like, yeah, that's the way I should think to use it. And it just felt like a really novel system that isn't really reproduced in other games.
Yeah, so I mean, I definitely, I really enjoyed that aspect of Infinity, where you've got I forgot, it's been like 5 years since I played it. Is it an order pool?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, so you contribute all your orders to a central pool, and then you decide. It's the same in Guild Ball, isn't it? You decide how you allocate those orders. But at Guild Ball, I think you have to do it at the beginning of the turn, whereas in Infinity, you can make your decisions based on the way the dice roll. And I really like that. I think that sort of really, I guess you have to call it kind of stretchy time, where you can, you know, it doesn't take an equal amount of time to do each activity every single time you do it. And so you've got to be a bit flexible with the way you think about what's happening on the table. However, I definitely remember that kind of Rambo effect, where you just load up your big robot dude, and your big robot dude would just rampage all over the opponent's force, and that being like sometimes quite an underwhelming experience.
It's not like me trying to criticize the game. I enjoyed playing Infinity, but it did feel sometimes that kind of developed as a meta in the sort of gaming group that I played in.
Well, I mean, that's why there are different games, isn't it? Because everything brings something new and different to the table, and everything, you know, the sort of the combination of various different mechanics. Yeah. Because actually, in miniatures games, there aren't all that many. I suppose every game has got a couple of unique things that are completely unique to that game. But most games resolve all of the problems that you have with how do you move, how do you shoot, in a broadly similar, you know, there are various different camps that games fit into. But it's not so much the fact that every game is completely unique in all of its mechanics, but it's the combination of those unique, those mechanics that make something unique.
Yeah, and someone sort of pointed out in chat just now that it's like 1 Rambo, 10 cheerleaders. That kind of does feel like how that Infinity sort of worked out for me. But it's just, I feel like in TDE, like in Drowned Earth, that there's not really a cheerleader. Everyone has their parts to play, but you kind of then have to start thinking, do I just pull the APs off this person to make sure that this character can get there to the terminal to be able to do what they need to do, or get to that objective.
Yeah.
It just gives you a lot more flexibility without being like broken.
And I think that with the command ability, there are a number of different ways to utilize it. You can do it right at the beginning of the turn in order to set up your plan, or you can use it as a contingency later on, where, you know, you overextend with a character and get them where you need them to be, but now their activation is over, but they don't have any activation points to react, but you can feed some from the command ability, so you can get them into a useful position, and then, you know, maybe later on in the turn, the people who were left with reactions, you realize they're not going to be able to use them, and so you can sort of suck them off and make them useful elsewhere, provided the dice go your way, of course, and we all know how that goes, right?
Very well.
Yeah.
Very well, exactly. Depends on, I think, the message I'm getting is it depends on whether you're Kieran or not.
I keep getting
And
accused of
whether
having
Kieran's
cursed dice.
running walls.
First, loaded dice.
They're all completely identical. All of those dice, definitely 100%. Watch out for the purple ones, though. Those are completely crooked.
To be honest, if you're using like loaded D10s, the problem is that you're most of the time always looking for 10s. So in this, it's actually because, like, you know, if you start rolling 10s all the time, you're not going to get very far.
Yeah, well, I can't roll dice, so deciding to invent a game where you have to roll low seemed like the obvious choice.
Yeah, don't
That's
tell
why.
the secret about the purple dice. Don't tell the secret about the purple dice.
So
A secret
we
rolling
have
technique.
What's been going on recently, we have been running a winter campaign, which I think all of you guys have been participating in. And just to sort of explain to anybody who's watching who hasn't been participating or who hasn't heard about the winter campaign, what it is, it's a slow grow campaign. We start off with just 3 models in round 1 and end up with 130 point, which is a big tournament list in round 4. But it's a narrative series of scenarios which lead into each other, where there are a number of different sort of legacy style achievements that and, you know, boons that you can get. You can level up your character's stats a little bit. You can discover some equipment which benefits them later in the game. You can, scenario 1 might benefit you in a way that you didn't anticipate in scenario 3. All of that sort of good stuff. So we've been doing that from December, and the last game I think is on the 23rd of February. Or at least the last round will be finished then. And meanwhile, while people have been submitting their game results to me, I've been graphing them and giving people an idea of what the standings look like, but also the factions which are doing especially well. We're sort of steering the way the story goes. So the story is kind of evolving as the campaign's going on in response to the game results. And I asked people, you know, in the game results, what was your most awesome moment? And Hosk falling off buildings despite having mobility climb seems to be a recurring theme, which just had to get written in somewhere. Kieran, so not only have you been playing, but a lot of the guys in your local gaming group have been participating as well. How's it been going?
It's been going really well, actually. Ian's one of the guys playing in the campaign, but we have a lot of them. The campaign's going well, not so well for me now. My poor artificers, but
oh dear,
I got done in by the militia.
Well,
I'll get you
don't
on
let the
Sunday.
team down, Kieran. Don't let the team down.
I couldn't help it. Nick's threw 14 shots at Forek and failed.
Well, you know, that's what comes with rolling repeated feats over and over again. Eventually, the dice gods are going to swing against you, and even things out. But how have you enjoyed the sort of story aspect and the kind of achievements? So you gain achievements through effect cards, basically, which then either modify your character. What have you got? What have you achieved?
Useless junk. That's what I got.
Well, yeah, you may or may not have worked out that useless junk might not be as useless as it sounds. You know, I'm saying nothing, but
wow. That's a good hint, actually. I'll hold on to that. I can't remember what the last item I got was. No, I can't remember. I don't have my cards with me, unfortunately. But I did get some good stuff from the villagers.
Yeah. So, Ian, do you what happened in your game 2? Game 2 is the one where you were tracking down stealth markers that were running across the board, and they either turned out to be villagers fleeing. Yep.
Yeah. But my opponent playing the firm decided it was better to shoot them. and make
How
enemies of
mean?
them.
How mean? Well,
I know,
I mean,
shocking. Well, it ended up coming more to my advantage.
right.
I just took stuff, as you do.
Yeah. So was your opponent wasn't Kieran by any chance?
No,
No, it wasn't
not
Kieran.
this time.
No, Darren.
Yeah, because
Darren,
artifactors really shouldn't. Artifactors definitely shouldn't be shooting the villagers. That's just not on. It's not
No.
cricket.
And Darren says he wasn't being mean in the chat. So
So the way that scenario worked was that you can either they're stealth markers. You can either charge into them and then decide whether you're going, if they're villagers, you decide whether you want to attack them or try and befriend them. But they might also be little attack dinos to try and kill you. And there were two different decks of loot, effectively, where you would you'd gain something and if you defeated or befriended them, and what you gained depended on whether it was a dinosaur or a villager, so to speak. So what have we got next? Kieran, tell us a little bit. I mean, you've already mentioned it briefly, Gotham to Cimmeria, but so you've been, you obviously play a lot of different games, and you guys have cottoned on to the Drowned Earth and have been playing quite a lot of it. But how often do you meet up? Where do you meet up? That sort of thing.
So it actually started out when I met Ian last year at BonesCon. I met Ian and a couple of the guys, and we ended up obviously playing games in a social setting there as opposed to partaking in the tournaments, which was really nice. And it led to us starting to meet up on maybe once a month at one of our local clubs to hang out and play games. But there was more people within the group that we used to play a cool mini game with Dark Age. They Let It Die. I'm not going to go into that right now. But a lot of us used to play that, and it was a really good group of people. So the tournaments were always great fun. It's where I met the Infinity Idiots guys and a lot of my friends. Once that gave up, and I got this like taste for BonesCon, or like the convention, I really wanted to sort of get people from different parts together and play like a load of different games and just try games here and just basically, you know, have fun. But the tournament style setting where everyone gets together for a weekend. So we now do it every 4 months. So it's free, yeah. Started in Oktoberfest last year, and it basically entails lots of games, lots of beer, pizza.
Sounds ideal. I mean, I've attended my fair share of tournaments. In fact, Tom and I used to go to a lot of the Lord of the Rings tournaments before that became a thing again. There was a really sort of what's the word? A very active and very vibrant scene of people just meeting up on a regular basis, and it was very friendly and tournament based, but still very casual. And it was a great way to meet people and have fun and just sort of, you know, relax and share time enjoying a game that you a game and a world that you're everyone's enthusiastic about. But I think one of the things that we always said was that was a game which was designed really, I'm not so sure about the latest edition, but certainly the original one was designed to play story scenarios rather than tournament games. And we sort of didn't complain exactly, but we always thought it would be nicer if we were all meeting up to play a big, you know, Battle of Helm's Deep scenario or something like that in a kind of weekend relaxed setting.
That would certainly be possible.
Yeah, it's a good system, that one, actually. Yeah, I totally get why people love tournaments, and, you know, I've certainly been to quite a few and, you know, enjoyed them. But I also really enjoy the more sort of, you know, narrative based casual casual side of gaming as well.
I just find sometimes people aren't quite as pleasant in tournaments, or you find tournaments can be intimidating for new players. And I wanted to create a place where that wasn't a thing, where people could come along and not feel that their ability was detrimental to other people or themselves enjoying the experience.
Yeah, well, it's the sort of that guy syndrome, right? We all know who he is. We've all met at least one.
You know, one's probably putting it kindly.
Well, at least, yeah. So, Kieran, if anybody was interested in joining you in your Gotham to Cimmeria adventures, how would they go about that?
You could join us on the Facebook group or page, Gotham to Cimmeria. It's there. It's probably easy to find. The logo is Batman, and the character you won't know if you haven't played Dark Age. We also have a group Discord. You can find a link. I'll probably give that to you to post on the YouTube video, where people can join us there and they can just dive in a chat with us while we're thinking. And the event will be posted in all those places. And to come to an event, just send a message, sign up, and we'll put you down.
Good stuff. And you're nowadays you're mostly meeting up at Element Games in Manchester, in Stockport.
It's right? Element, yeah. It's central in the country, isn't it? And we've got people from up north, people from down south. So Element's the biggest place, kind of central.
Yeah, well, that's certainly where we ran our first tournament event, and we're going up to the Top Table Weekender in March as well. To run basically a sort of a version of the winter campaign that we've been running. So my idea was that the winter campaign would be a sort of live event, but once it was done, I'd publish a document so that people like yourself can run it as a slow grow league over the course of a number of weeks in your local clubs and what have you. And being a slow grow, it's quite a good way to get people into the game who, aren't yet painted and don't have all the models yet. They can sort of dip their toe in with just 3 models and grow from there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just kind of wanted to touch base on the Gotham to Cimmeria group, because I'm in it, and it's a great place, great group. I haven't had a chance to meet up with you guys, but great group of guys just to chat and get advice and stuff like that. It's what gaming should be like.
Yes,
we hope so.
Yeah.
So, well, the big question is when's the next meetup?
So the next meetup's actually the 15th, 16th, and 17th of February, which is a little sharp now for a lot of people. But if you can get down, you're welcome to join us. We'd love to have you. There will be Drowned Earth there, as well as a lot of other game systems, probably every game system. The only ones we tend to sort of keep out are the bigger GW ones, because we don't like people spend 6 or 7 hours playing one game when they can be mingling with others.
Well, I've always certainly described myself as a hobby butterfly. I can't stick to one thing for too long. I want all the games. And I think that's part of it is having a sort of game designer attitude, is you just want to see lots of different stuff being played and see how the different mechanics feel. But I think I'd be like that anyway. I certainly was before I started designing games.
Yeah, it's nice to see that type of community thing coming back, rather than, I think we've had a couple of years, maybe the type of games we've been playing where it's been heavily focused around competitive organised play in a lot of circles. So it's nice to kind of be falling back to that local game shop mentality, but on a big scale.
Yeah, and I mean, I just think there's room for both, and there's no reason why one should be above the other. It's different strokes, and some people like both, and some people prefer one over the other, and it's all good, really.
It's all personal choice.
Yeah,
completely agree.
Absolutely,
all personal choice.
So moving on, we've just had our first wave of releases. And of course, from the some of them are dinos. We've got a pack of wayfarers. The list building opportunities now for each faction are a little bit in advance of what they were during or immediately after the Kickstarter. Let's talk a little bit about list building, and specifically, why don't we pick a particular faction and just sort of break it down? How about the Artifactors? Who's an Artifactors player?
I'm an Artifactors player.
Right. Well, we've got one at least.
You know the answer to that one, John.
Simon. Yeah. Okay. Well, I guess it's just as valid. How your experience playing against is just as valid as your experience playing them. What do you want on your side when you play Artifactors nowadays? I think if you're an Artifactor, then you've got probably Artifactor or Firm. You've got more choices than most others because you've got the mounted leader plus an extra model now.
I still haven't used my mounted leader.
Well, she's so. Have you haven't yet played in the sort of organized play setting, but the idea of those organized play scenarios is that you go to an event, but each game has a different points value, and so you go with a pool of models, and you can tailor your list for each scenario. Read them in advance, work out what you think could be best. So you sort of take a toolkit and decide: do I want her on the Raptor or not, sort of thing. Simon, verdict:
yes.
On Raptor, not on Raptor. Which scenarios do you really want her on a Raptor?
The right scenario, on the Raptor, get her upfield, drop her off in a great position to fire in lanes, and then let the Raptor go run around and do what Raptor does best.
Which is what?
Make other people look the other way.
Yeah, I feel like the Raptors are a fairly good. They're good at running interference because you can't ignore them. They're super dangerous. They're not particularly difficult to take out at range, but costs action points to do it, right?
Yeah.
What about Ando? Have you managed to get him on the table yet?
I haven't, but I would love to this weekend. I'm going to give you in my third game actually of the winter campaign. Unfortunately, I can't put Ando in it. You've banned me.
Have I?
Yeah, it's the starter box and dinos.
Yeah. That's right. Yeah,
Unless he's secretly a dino.
No, sadly not. No, in the last scenario, we'll be able to do that. And the reason for doing that is because it's the sort of slow growth thing to make it to make it possible for people to just buy a box and get on with the campaign, sort of thing. We'll see how it goes with when it comes to actually publishing the slow grow campaign document. We might let people in game 3 just take any 5 models plus some dinos. But at the moment, it's just the starter box is a neat points value is the main thing.
Yeah.
Ando's getting a lot of love in the chat.
I like Ando's rules. They look great. I just want to get them on the table.
I love him. He gives you the option of like running a bit of control in a Wayfarer list. Suddenly it's not all about speed, or in his case, very much not about speed. It gives you a different way of doing things.
When you can zip up a grappling line, it doesn't really matter if your agility isn't spot on either. But I sort of feel like you're right. It's area control. Ando, you sit in there. He's got a big threat bubble.
That machete as well.
Yeah, exactly. Even bondsmen, I think, don't really want to let him get the charge. They don't mind fighting him, but they definitely don't want to fight him on his terms.
Agreed. There's nothing funnier than the idea.
Favorite models? Who do you take? Who do you leave out? When if you're short on models, let's say 110 point list. You probably want to take some dinos. Which models do you leave out in what circumstance and why?
So I'm about to massacre the names of some of your characters here. And I should really know this.
Well, let me just start that he's colloquially known amongst the beta testers as Slevsk the Unpronounceable.
Luckily, it's not him. But I always take Nyx and Corian. I mean, there's no point in not having Nyx. Like,
Yeah.
The other one is interchangeable if I'm only playing with a couple of models, but that would depend on who I'm playing and what they take as to whether it would be Sage or possibly Anna.
Well, dropping the big guy is always an option, just because it's a big chunk of points, isn't it? You can take Anna and a Dino for the cost of Sage, and getting extra bodies and extra activations and what have you on the table is useful. But yeah, that smoke is super handy, especially if you're playing against the militia, where you really need to just get as much in their way and take as much out of their ranged effectiveness as possible.
Yeah, it's interesting what Kieran was saying, because Corian for me is one of the first ones I do drop.
Right.
Yeah, I almost always end up with Nick and Anna and Slefs, because I love the idea of having two difficult to target people, so I can get around the ball nice and quick. But I suppose I kind of play the Wayfarers as almost like a rush strategy.
Yeah.
No, I can't leave home without my medic. I take too much of a beating.
Well, it's good to hear you're putting your medic to use, because I think that's probably the thing the mistake I see people make the most is underutilizing their medic, and people are like, well, it's difficult to get it all the way across the board in order to get it to where it needs to be. It's like, well, why don't you just stick him like glue to the person who you want him to heal more than anyone else, which is like Nyx, obviously. Just have them march up together, so he's always there to top her up if she gets into trouble.
Pretty sure last time I did that, she made the jump and he fell and died.
Yeah, but, well, that can also happen. Well, your opponent definitely has to go ha ha as that happens.
It needs to be a small trombone to play every time that happens.
Yeah, exactly. Tiny trombone.
Yeah, I find really that actually, I like having Sage when I play the Artifactors, but he is such a sink for points that, and I just find he maybe doesn't fit in with my style of play in the same way, because he doesn't have the same sort of range weapon. He's a Varengi, so he does a lot of damage when he gets to someone, but I don't find myself trying to charge in with the Artifactors in the same way that I do when I play Bondsman.
Yeah,
so
I mean, I almost see Sage as more of an objective grabber than anything else. He can take some punishment, he can hold his own, but really he's sort of mobile, agile. He's got a movement reroll. He's just sort of handy in that respect.
Sage saved my last game against the Wayfarers. He feated 4 times in a row. It was very good. The only way I could have actually won that game was if he feated 3 times to get halfway across the board, up to the top of the building, and shoot down at the Wayfarer in cover below, killing him. And he managed it.
Yeah. Well, some of you know my friend Tom Macklin, who's also one of the beta testers, and he professes to have terrible luck, and it's a complete lie. He doesn't have terrible luck at all. What he has is good luck when it doesn't matter, and terrible luck at all the critical moments, like without fail.
I found my sword.
Whenever it's an important role, he'll always mess it up.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, you need to face off and see who's got the most unfortunate dice.
Ian.
I don't know. Tough act to follow. But yeah, I mean, so I think what we'll do is in these sessions we'll handle a faction every segment, and this month we'll do the Artifactors. When taking Artifactors, what dinos do people like to use best?
Spitting dinos.
Dilos.
Yeah, I like them.
Yeah, interesting. Why is that?
Ranged attacks. I feel they're a little bit of a harassing thing, and they're cheap.
The loss of the AP is particularly annoying.
Yeah.
That has cost me a game against.
Yeah, and the artifactors they don't have a great deal of stun. Slesk has stun on his melee weapon whip, but I just there aren't very many times you're going to use that unless he's managed to blunder a shot and he's can't shoot, because whenever you're within whipping distance, you'd rather just shoot somebody with a hand cannon.
Yeah.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more with the Dilos. Dilos are awesome with the artifacts. Sometimes throw a load of overraptors in just because you've got the points and need the bodies. Although I tend to find that happens more when I'm using Sage, just because I need to. If I want to fill out bodies, I'll use cheap dinos just to make up for the fact I've dropped some points into him.
Yeah, and I think depending on what kind of game you're playing, if you're trying to take it to the enemy or whether you're just trying to sort of sneak around and secure objectives and shoot back when you're shot at, but not really engage too much. One of the most sensible things you can do is just take a whole load of cheap dinos to try to draw reactions out of people, so that then your dudes can dance around and do what they need to do, grab the objectives.
100%. And there's a certain amount of having activations you can use to waste. If you've got a model you don't want to move until it's the right time, having a couple of 3 overraptors to sync their activations. You just go, I'll just use this person, and then they've got to go. You know, and that sort of stuff. And suddenly it's they've used all their activations up, and now I can let Anna do this objective run. I
think that makes excellent tactical sense. What I find myself doing way more often is scratching my head and thinking, I can't make a decision, so I'm just going to move this stupid 5-point piece of nonsense so I can think about it a bit longer and then let you make a decision.
I'm gobsmacked that you can't make a decision.
I found that the Yutas have been just the Yuta Raptors, even though 12 points are a lot more expensive compared to they're almost up there with an actual character, but the damage they can put out and just being able to sort of pretty mobile, like with leap and savage, it's just ridiculous having a reroll in close combat when they're already pretty dangerous. So,
I really think that combination of speed and close combat deadliness makes them a really good pick for artifactors who otherwise are pretty much lacking in any close combat ability. They can hold off the bondsman, try and soak up an activation or 2 of the bondsman while you get to where you need to go.
Yeah, they just they're brilliant looking models as well, so I really like painting
they are
on the table.
Beautiful models.
But yeah, they're just so dangerous as well. I think I've always also wanted to sort of do a Nixon Raptor with just Yutas.
With a bunch of raptors, yeah. So I think you can get five
Yutas or whatever the maximum number is. So you just have that, and it's just Jurassic World being reproduced in TDE.
Yeah, I think you can just about squeeze that into 100 points, right? You might even have enough left over for some cards. Of course, one of the critical points is you can't command dinos. So
it's a rubbish list competitively, because also you can't do anything with any objectives. You've got hope that Nix is able to smack a keyboard.
She's got another thing I see people making rules mistakes is she's a character, so she can't interact. She's got to dismount in order to become a character, in order to and then she can potentially get back on and charge around and do what she does best, or potentially. I mean, I think one of the things I like about the with the exception, Simon, of Forek, of course, one of the nice things about the mounted models is that you get 2 for the price of 1. You can hop them off when it's convenient and have them charge around and attack people and run interference while you're doing whatever the important thing is, opening the door or grabbing an objective or something like that. You can even use them as cover.
Scenery with Forek though to hide behind.
Yeah, that is definitely true. You can sort of park him somewhere and then snipe over its shoulder. Good stuff. Okay, so I feel like we could probably talk a little bit about terrain. So I think we sort of had a brief conversation. And Kieran, were you saying somebody in your group was sort of interested in the terrain density and that sort of thing?
Yeah, somebody did mention it. It happens to me all the time, but no matter how much terrain I put down, you've seen
Right.
pictures of the list. Somehow I find myself in the open.
Yeah, yeah. Well, so I almost feel like the getting completely out of sight is going to be hard, particularly the more points are on the table. It's just a question of, like, you know, mitigating your opponent's effectiveness by making sure you're hugging the cover and using the cover well. And I think another really key point in the game is picking your shots and making sure you're at your optimum. While they're at a disadvantage, you only need to pass while they need to nail it, that sort of thing. Making sure you're in cover, they're not in cover, that sort of thing. But as far as the amount of terrain is concerned, there's a sweet spot, but it does depend on the size of the board. So if you're playing on a 3x3 without any water, then you could probably I mean, personally, I would encourage people to use as much water as possible. The map that Deep Cut Studios makes for us, the official one, I spent quite a long time playtesting that to get the balance of water to land correct. But the obvious point is that if there's a lot of water on the table, it's going to slow you down, and you need to get up into that terrain in order to move around more effectively, so that you're not just sort of swimming at slow movement all the time. And also it just gives you opportunities to roll the dice and potentially roll feats. Kieran, I've heard you're good at that.
I always try. If I can jump over something on my way, I'll try it.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's difficult to explain in chat. What I'll say is the rulebook has a reasonably good chapter on it. The hard copy of the rulebook has a reasonably good chapter in it where I went into as much depth as I was able. I'm going to make a YouTube video about it as well and talk about different terrain densities. But what I'd say is that if you're not using water, you don't necessarily need more terrain, but you might even be better playing on a 4x4 instead of a 3x3. That's a legitimate choice. You can do it. It's not what we do in tournaments. The sort of tournament standard game is 3x3 with a table with a bunch of water on it. Probably 2/3 water, 1/3 solid ground, something like that. And you want to think. I don't want to give specific guidance, but you want to think about the distance between your buildings. So a base is roughly 1 inch. So a 6-inch jump, a 5-inch jump plus an inch is going to get you across, but you're going to need to nail it. So lots of paths around the terrain, even if you have to climb up to get to that jumping point, where the jumping points are roughly 5 inches. Then if it's going to be restricted to a Barangi or some of the models which have slightly higher movement values, then you can make those 6-inch jumps. And where that's not possible, just have a bunch of bridges. Keep things connected. Bridges are always good, and just like if you don't have a lot of structural terrain, make sure you use loads of scatter terrain, just loads of little bits of bushes and crates and stuff like that. That'll really stop it. What you really want to do is stop it, and I think this is something that's true of the vast majority of science fiction skirmish level games. Shooting is deadly, and so you just want there to be not so many wide open areas, particularly if you're playing against the militia. Never play the militia on their home territory, because obviously all militia players just put like one building in the middle of the table and they're like, yep, done.
Here's my minigun.
I think there's a lot to be said. You mentioned the water earlier. I think, you know, it's such an intrinsic part of the game that you've got to have a large amount of water on the field. Really
well,
do.
I really enjoy it just because mostly I want to throw myself off buildings and shoot people while I'm falling.
I just want to
what
put
could be
myself
cooler
out
than
when I'm
that?
on fire.
Well, yeah, there's also that. I mean, you'll notice that there are no core rules for putting fire out, with the exception of jumping in water.
It's not like a stop, drop, and roll special ability.
Definitely.
But yeah, and I think, you know, the main thing about terrain is that, of course, you know, it serves a number of different purposes. One of them is to look awesome, and the game's got a specific aesthetic at the moment. And one of the things I really love about the Facebook group is I really enjoy seeing other people's takes on it. That there isn't just a single aesthetic in my mind. If you read the fluff in the rulebook, I mean, everything's tropical, but within the tropics, there are loads and loads of different environments, and I really sort of look forward to and enjoy seeing people's different takes on that. But I think the main thing is just blocking too much line of sight, thinking carefully about the jumping distances, and thinking carefully about the average range of the weapons. You know, you want to give people plenty of opportunity to take cover, but not make it so that the bondsman can smack you in the face without you ever getting a shot at them on turn 3.
Ian enjoyed that, a map full of water and the bondsman coming straight at him.
Sounds harsh. Sounds harsh.
It was his first campaign game, I think.
Yeah, it was. Yeah. No, it's my second one, but I gave somebody else a game.
No bitterness there at all, is there?
No.
I think Lamosque took everyone on his own.
Oh. Yeah, Lamosque is horrible at times. Yeah. I guess this is the moment where I should mention that at the moment, if you want a massive 50 quid's worth of store credit, then you need to get writing, because we're running a fiction competition at the moment. One of the things that I enjoyed the most during the Kickstarter, a number of people sent me fiction set in the Drowned Earth, which I absolutely loved. I want more of it. And would love it if people get their creative juices going and you know, write some stories and set them in the world, and, you know, use their imagination.
I think it's something that we don't probably talk about as much. It's the backstory for the game is amazing, and the artwork in the rulebook. I don't think there's another rulebook available that has got such amazing artwork that really tells what the world is like.
Yep.
Well, I did put an awful lot of work into it. I pretty much, I mean, I delivered a month early, but I probably could have delivered 3 months early if I hadn't decided to completely go to town on the rulebook and make it as comprehensive in terms of world building. I mean, I felt like a lot of people have said to me, "When's the RPG coming?" And it's, you know, that's another question. But I feel like if you wanted to just use a setting neutral system like Savage Worlds or GURPS or something like that, there's enough information in the rulebook that you could definitely do that, I think.
The Infinity Idiots have asked what's the boundary to the fiction? You know, what the boundaries?
So Ulaya is a continent, and it's a continent which there's sea to the north and west. There's a big mountain range called the Spineback Mountains to the east, and to the south there's a big wall with a big civilization behind that wall that don't really let people travel beyond it, although there's only there isn't much land. The sort of this mountain range, and there's a map in the rulebook, but What's beyond Alaya? Well, I'm not telling, but I think there's enough ground to cover just within the continent of Alaya to take up quite a lot of sort of game release content. So we'll be there for a fair while, but the opportunity in the future to think about what else is going on in the world. Perhaps obviously there's the world is tropical, and so there's been a certain amount of climate change, but that doesn't mean that the climate is the same planet wide. That's not really the way things work, is it?
Yeah, if you want to sort of get the idea of how much fluff there is, like in the rules book, you've got from about 40 odd pages of fluff just about the world, and then you've got another 20 pages covering the different factions. So James has written a lot of fluff about this, and probably he, as he says, really scratched the surface of what the Drowned Earth is.
Yeah, I look forward to filling in more gaps. I wish I had the time at the moment. Actually, it's one of those things where just something crops up every time I think, oh, I've got some time. I can just sit down and write a short story or write some fluff. Something else comes up, but that's I think one of the reasons why it's been nice to do the winter campaign, because it's been a little bit of story. The story you'll see sort of it isn't grandiose at the moment necessarily, but I think it hints. It will begin to hint by the time the campaign's over at wider things that are going on in the world, so that's been pretty nice. So, have we got any questions? If anybody in the chat has anything they want to ask, Simon just read one out. But if anybody in the chat's got one, and I know that some of you guys have been asking around in your local gaming group as well, and have got a few questions that people have asked.
There's a couple of questions. First one I have is, when will the Jurassic Park cast be appearing within the Drowned Earth? Specifically, shirt ripped to Jeff Goldblum.
Jeff Goldblum, wow. Okay, well, so the boring answer is obviously that I don't want to get sued by Steven Spielberg, and as much as there are definitely Jurassic Park influences, and we've already mentioned there are Predator influences and Aliens influences and all that sort of thing, and many more. The name of the game is a sort of homage to one of my favorite hard sci-fi books, The Drowned World by J.G. Ballard. Although you read that book, you'll see there's very little similarity between the worlds. There's some similarity in the environment, and that's about it. But the boring answer is that I obviously can't just go and copy characters from popular culture. But if you look at the range as it is, you'll see there are a fair amount of influences and sort of homages. So we might Jeff Goldblum, I'm not so sure exactly, but we might see some characters who have shadows of various characters that you've seen in your favorite movie franchises.
Yeah, a great big disclaimer on them, of course, but
yeah, exactly.
That they might look similar to something you've seen before. That's on you.
So one of the questions: will there be pirates?
I know who asked that question.
Yeah, he's ducked and he's laughing at the moment.
Hello, I hope everything is well in Germany, and I'll see you at Essen. Jokke. I'm pretty sure that's who it was, yeah. Yes, there will be pirates, because pirates are awesome. When will there be pirates? That is a different question. Don't know. Will pirates be a different faction, or will there just be pirate characters in existing factions? Don't know. But Anybody who's got the hard copy of the rulebook will know that there is an island complex in the north of the continent called the Thousand Isles, and there is lots and lots of pirate activity up there, and two big empires which are fighting over territory and have been doing so for decades. And in the chaos of war, there are lots of nefarious characters who use the fact that these big empires are spending all their time fighting each other to hoover up the scraps and be generally piratical. So watch this space.
Surely there'll be wayfarers.
Say again?
Surely there'll be wayfarers.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think yeah. I feel like there is probably, the Wayfarers might be quite a good home for some various piratical characters also. I've dodged around that question, really, but...
Beautiful segue. Next question. Is there any news on the Wayfarers?
Okay. So I guess I know what people are alluding to there. We just released... Wave 1 with 5 models. One of those model releases was a dino, or at least 2, a pack of 2 Troodons, but there wasn't a Wayfarer model. Yes, there are definitely going to be Wayfarer models in the future, but we're probably not going to have too many. We're basically going to be releasing things at a slightly different rate. So rather than 5 waves having 5 models, this isn't a guarantee, but this is just what I feel like is probably going to happen in the future. Rather than having a wave of 5 models, which effectively leave one faction at, if you consider the dinos to be a faction, they're not really, but then rather than there being one wave with 5 models in, and then we alternate between dinos, wayfarers, what we're probably going to do instead is have waves of 3 models, which will be 3 factions and then 2 factions plus dino, and we'll alternate between that instead.
Cool. Kieran, you got any more questions from your group? I know you had some.
I'll just open that back up. Yeah. Someone said, I like the equipment and effect cards from the campaign. Will they be made more permanent for list building?
So, yes and no. Those specific ones, some of them are actually directly taken from a product that we're beta testing at the moment, which is a card deck, which will be mostly effect cards. We're also, I hope anyway, we're going to, I need to check on exactly the way we're going to produce them to see whether this is possible or not. But what I'm going to hope to do is throw the errated cards. So there are about 5 cards that had mistakes on them. I'm hoping to throw those into this deck as well.
Actor's shotgun.
Nothing wrong with that gun.
Was it like damage 15 where it should have been range 15 or something? Yeah. Yeah, strangely enough, that one was picked up by quite a few people, but never the people that were playing the Wayfarers, always the Wayfarers' opponents. I can't think why.
Just to follow back onto that Wayfarers one, some guys have also asked more around the community side of things, so the Wayfarer program as opposed to necessarily the characters.
Yeah. Okay, so was at the moment we have a number of people who've signed up to the Wayfarers program, and the Wayfarers program is our kind of what do you call it, community ambassador program, where people sign up. And so, for example, Kieran, you're a Wayfarer.
I am.
And so it's your responsibility in your local group to promote the game and to organize events and to keep people enthused about it and to let people know what's going on, to give demos to new players and all that sort of stuff. And that really, you know, particularly for independent games from independent companies like ours, that's really the sort of lifeblood of the whole enterprise. You know, when people like yourself are enthusiastic and really passionate about spreading the word about a small game, which, you know, is never going to have the marketing budget of you know, a big very well established company. that's how we grow, really. So if anybody's interested in that, send me a message on Facebook or email Simon at thedrowndearth.com, and we'll get you hooked up in how to apply and that sort of thing. But yeah, very important. Thank you, whoever asked that question.
Cool. Just one I've heard before, but it's also been mentioned here. Do we have any plans of making Drowned Earth terrain? Well, actually.
Yes, but I've been saying this for ages and it still hasn't happened. And the reason why is that I have been working through a number of third-party companies, and it's just one of those things where, the people I was working with have been very busy and haven't managed to get anything out, and then I've gone to a different company. And however, this time I think it really is going to come through, and it's with a company called Zen Terrain. Do you have a look at what they do? They make some very nice science fiction terrain and some fantasy terrain. It's reasonably priced, and they're very good at what they do. Like everyone, they're busy, and so we've been talking about how to most efficiently get it out there. But we're hoping that we're going to launch it at Salute. As I say, I can't make too many promises because it's out of my hands. But that's certainly what we're aiming for.
That seems to be quite a positive choice in the chat there, James. I think you got it right.
Yep.
So a couple of questions around the dinosaurs. So first one, again, one that we've discussed a lot, James, flying dinosaurs. Go.
Yeah, so that's mechanically something that's, so when you from a sort of to give you the game design perspective, you want as many things in the game to run off the core mechanics. I want as many things. Not every game designer does this, but I think games should be easy to play so that you are concentrating on the tactics on the table and not trying to wrangle with overly complex rules. And so things like flying, there are possibly ways to resolve that within the core mechanics, but it does make life difficult, obviously, because of positioning. You can't, it's impossible to plot exactly where a flying dinosaur is as to whether you can draw a line of sight to it or not. And so there are a whole bunch of things which are kind of cool, but not necessarily easy to resolve in a way which is fair in a competitive environment kind of thing. And I'm also always very aware of the kind of negative play experience where if you give people enough rope, most people will just have fun with it, but every so often you're going to find people who don't and who try to turn it into an exploit. And so I'm always careful to try and design against that being possible. Having said that, I think, as I said earlier, I think there are ways to handle flying in a slightly more limited sense through skills and through using existing core mechanics. But probably whatever you did, you'd always have to, it would be a different kind of movement, but you'd always have to have a landing point.
Right, definitely.
But who doesn't want to see a pterosaur model? I mean, I know I definitely need that in my life.
My dream of Wishbone on a pterodactyl's gone out the window.
I'm not ruling anything out. I'm not ruling anything in. But all I'll say is, from a design point of view, it's tricky. But I think sometimes the things which are really awesome are worth spending the time on.
Cool. So on Beast of War a while back, it was mentioned and possibly shown a picture of a rather large dinosaur. Any news?
There are no, but save your pennies, maybe. I hope to have more to say about that soon.
Basically, invest in phone cases soon.
Sorry, I had you both at once there, Ian.
So my son saw the picture and he was just like, "I want that," and I was like, "Nah, it's not coming yet." No, but I want it. It's like, not yet. I want it. It's like, oh, when it comes.
Well, I suspect it, and there might be a scenario built around it.
Start buying your bigger cases, lads.
Yeah.
Right, cool. So, what? It's an interesting one from a you know, Kieran, you great viewpoint. Obviously, myself and James and the rest of the guys. Who do we think are the group of players, the best people to demo to? You know, Infinity players going to have the density of terrain because that's what they're used to. But who should the guys be targeting?
I find that actually most people, if you can get them to sit down and play a game, that's all you need. And at my events, people are Infinity players, people are GW players, 40k players, and quite most of them have actually just bought in after having one go, just because it's fun. I would suggest just pushing it on anyone that's interested in a smaller scale game. Just tout it that you can carry it around in a really tiny box. For now, till the T-Rex comes.
That's exactly what I was going to say. Just put loads of dinosaurs on the edge of the table. Done.
That normally does it, yeah. That kind of helps.
Cool. Got any other questions at your end, Kieran?
You keep making me open them up. Where are they again? Sorry, I lost them. Jurassic Park, we've asked that one. Someone asked if James would do a video breakdown of the campaign system as he feels a bit lost with it. And when he says a breakdown, he means how to use the campaign.
I see. Well, it might all become clearer when we actually just publish it as a single document. So I think the reason why it might be a bit confusing at the moment is because it's a sort of thing that you sign up to, and then you get a bunch of emails updating you on what's happened, and you know, you go onto the website. There's the winter campaign hub. With a bunch of links to the different scenarios to download and stuff like that. Whereas as a single document, when we run it as a slow grow campaign, it'll be a little bit more. The structure will probably be a bit more obvious because you're not sort of playing along online. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So as far as a video is concerned, I mean, I've been struggling and intending to do a whole bunch of YouTube stuff, and it's just it's one of those things that I just haven't found the time for, and I feel nervous about loudly committing to it, but at the same time I'm 100% trying to make a bunch of YouTube content. And well, I mean, we're doing it now, aren't we? But you know, make some actual maybe even some game reports, but certainly some things about terrain building and, you know, model assembly and things like that. It's just tough as a small company, and it's you know, it's me and some help from my friends. You know, it's just tough to find the time to do everything. And everyone who knows me says I work too much, but I mean, I work on making a toy soldiers game. It's fun, so I don't mind working 60-hour weeks.
Cool. We kind of discussed release schedules, how the faction, you know, how you're going to go with the factions. Is there any plan for new leaders for the existing factions? So alternate choices for leaders.
So how much am I going to talk about? All right. So the answer to that is yes, but there's so there definitely will be other leaders and you know, almost as importantly, other leader ability cards, so you can mix and match and really sort of structure. You know, it'll give you a bit more sort of style choices with your list building, so you can go in one direction or another, depending on not just which leader you take, but which leader ability card you take. But we're also going to, and I'm not going to say too much about it, but we're going to have models which are not leaders, which might make might give you some opportunities to save some points by foregoing some core abilities, kind of thing. So maybe you don't take a leader, or maybe you get a discount on a particular model if you don't take a leader card, that sort of thing. So just sort of opening up the list building opportunities, and you know, doing that through the sort of the system that we have at the moment, where you take a leader, they command, they get a leader ability. We might mix that up a little bit and give the players a few options to choose what they really want to do.
Great. Is there any plans, because we've seen the next wave come out, what's the plans with regards to rule books, fluff books, with new waves, expansions, etc.?
So at the moment, sorry, go on in.
And how often will they come?
Well, yeah, that's really difficult to say at the moment. What I can say is that with the releases, each wave of releases, we're hoping to publish a new sort of fun scenario, something that's not competitive at all, that's just for narrative. As we did with the first one, we had this sort of King of Tartuffe, like King of the Hill style scenario. We're going to be doing that on a regular basis, and maybe there'll be some fluff involved with that. As far as other publications like that are concerned, I've said before, it's no great secret that we are slowly working on a campaign system. Obviously we've released the winter campaign. Some of those ideas are dry runs for a much more grandiose campaign system, which would be a product. It'd be a big box that you bought with a whole load of stuff in it, to really allow you to play much more narrative, interesting games. And at that stage, there would definitely be some some significant fluff content to that, because it would involve another book, I think. These are plans which, the problem with being a small company is that you work out what you want to do, and then as you go further down that process, you realize some things aren't practical, some things probably not tactically the best choice. You've always got to think about what's the most financially sensible thing as well. And so, what I found is that it's a little bit of a mistake for me to overcommit to a particular idea, however much I like plans can change. But that's sort of where I am headspace wise at the moment. But you might also be seeing other games, smaller games, nothing to do with miniatures, also set in the Drowned Earth at some stage in the future.
I hope my luck changes in those before you release them.
Saying nothing. I am going to say, though, is I sort of made a bit of a foolish promise and said that I was going to show a very early concept sketch, and it is a sketch rather than a finished piece of concept art, work in progress, for one of the next releases. Anybody interested? Anybody want to see something like that?
Not at all.
No. All right, I won't bother then. No. Okay, so let's have a look here. So I'm going to let you all. I'm not going to give you a name. I'm going to let you all guess as to what faction we might be looking at. But
Oof.
Can we all see that? We can. Yeah.
So that's.
So what faction is he? What do you think?
Wayfarer?
I'm not going to answer.
Yeah.
You've mentioned this already. So.
Darren on the chat's asked if it's the new dinosaur.
Yes. Yeah. You've got me. It is.
There's an awful lot of yeses being shouted, so there's a chance they may be interested and slightly excited.
Yeah. He looks pretty fun. So what we're also going to be doing is introducing a few characters over the next few releases that are much more affordable, but much more niche. So they do one thing really well, and they're much less versatile than the characters that we're used to so far. But you get a point saving for that as well. And I thought, while I was sharing pictures, I'd also just let's see, can we? I'll just sort of show you these, which are done by a very good commission painting service in Poland, who are actually friends of Zen Terrain, who are potentially doing the Drowned Earth terrain. This is castlebrush.eu, and I particularly like the job they've done. Kalhana. But just these we're going to put these up on the website in the not too distant future. But I thought I'd give you all a sneak preview of them before I did that. There we go. That's your lot. Yeah, I think we're done. In fact, we're 6 minutes over schedule. Sort of wind this up, and I thank you for everybody who's watching, and thank you everyone who watches in the future. One of the nice things about these is that a bunch of people come along and actually interact and throw questions at us while we're chatting, but that it's all going to go up on YouTube and people can watch it at their leisure at a later date, particularly for people who are in the States and who this isn't a convenient time for them. For us, it's all after kids have been put to bed and what have you, but everybody stateside is still at work, but they can come back and watch this when they feel like it. So guys, thank you very much. If you want to just sort of say goodbye, any final thoughts if you've got them, but I really appreciate you all coming along and helping me do this.
I suppose one thing I'd say is, off the back of this, any of you guys are interested in being part of the Wayfarer program, or our demo team, just reach out. My email's either on the Facebook page or it's in the comments on the live chat. Reach out. Love to have you on board.
Yeah, absolutely. And that also goes for beta testers, looking for committed beta testers. That, of course, is not an enormous time commitment, but it's certainly a sort of mental commitment that you've got to think pretty carefully about the game. Yeah, we're always looking out for people to help out in that regard as well.
Yeah, I'm just thinking as well, like, what would be the best way if people have questions, maybe they think about what we've discussed just now, and they think later on, like, oh, I want to ask that at the next live stream, or, as you said, for anyone in the States or other places who can't watch live, what's the best way for them to send in questions?
Well, they can either so YouTube messaging is not the best. So I would say the Facebook group is good, or just send them to Simon at thedrowndedearth.com. Watch the spam pour in. Now I've said it, but yeah, it's always better to say it rather than post it. Drop us an email, are probably the best two ways.
While also on the fan page, that either myself or James will create a post, and each time we're going to do a show, we'll put a post up and just drop your questions in the comments of that post.
Yeah. Kieran, Ian, last thoughts?
I want more spoilers, to be honest, but
you'll have to wait till next month. There might be a bit more to talk about next month.
It's furiously got to get scribbling to make some stuff up.
No. My last thoughts are, if obviously anyone's available in 2 weeks' time to come down to the Government of Samaria event, get yourself there. There is an event T-shirt which I've showed James. Not many people have seen it, but it might be Drowned Earth related.
Yeah, it's pretty fun. Complete stylistic departure, but I think everyone who sees it is going to like it. Excellent. All right, thanks, guys. I guess we will wind it up there. And once again, thanks so much being a part of this. Speak to you all soon.
Cheers, guys.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you.